Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. The N64, when I first got it, was absolutely jaw-dropping. This is probably going to be the same for the PlayStation 1 as well. The step up from the Super Nintendo and Mega Drive was unbelievable. I remember the first time I played Tekken 2 and I was like, oh my god, what is this? This is really when games grew up. I remember when I played Tekken 2 for the first time and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So today we're going to be looking at the N64, and there's times when I played a video game and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I'll be completely upfront with you. The list is probably exactly what you expect it's going to be, because I think everyone can agree these are probably some of the best jaw-dropping games that we saw back when we were growing up. But if there's ones that you think need to be on here, let me know in the comments. Or if you just want to talk about your own memories about these games, I'd love to hear it. As always, if you think I deserve it, please hit that like and hype button, because that is what turns this from a little hobby into a full-time career. You can also subscribe and hit the notification bell to be told when new videos are coming out. We've also got the weekly podcast, and you can join the free Discord, and I'd love to see you over there. Right, let's get into it, shall we? The most jaw-dropping games for the N64. Super Mario 64. Well, let's start off with this one, because Mario 64 was the other one alongside Tekken 2 that made me think, oh my god. While later games did push the console's limit, Super Mario 64 did something much more radical. It invented those limits. Before this game, 3D gaming was a clunky experimental mess of tank controls and fixed camera angles. Nintendo didn't just make a 3D Mario, they built the entire skeleton of how humans interact with the virtual world. It was a day one masterclass in a genre that didn't even have a name yet. Bowser has kidnapped Princess Peach again because she wants you to have cake, and stolen the castle's power stars, hiding them inside enchanted paintings. He's been a busy boy doing all this. Mario must dive into these worlds and reclaim the stars and unlock the secrets of the castle. It was the first true 3D platformer, swapping the left to right idea for a wide open non-linear sandboxes. It launched alongside the N64's Trident controller, introducing the world to the analog stick, the single most important input change in gaming history. Super Mario 64 is a masterpiece of foundational genius. It solved problems developers didn't even know they had yet. Before 1996, movement was digital, but when the N64's analog stick, Mario's movement became fluid. If you tilted the stick slightly, he tiptoed. If you pushed it hard, he sprinted. This analog connection between your thumb and Mario's momentum felt like magic, providing a level of physical control that made the character feel like a living extension of the player. Camera control was always the final boss of early 3D design. Nintendo solved this by making the camera an actual character, a Lakitu on a cloud following Mario. By using the C buttons, players could manually adjust their perspective. This taught an entire generation how to look and move simultaneously, a skill we now take for granted in every modern title from Call of Duty to Elden Ring. Shigeru Miyamoto famously refused to build levels until Mario felt right in an empty room. This resulted in an incredible moveset: the triple jump, the long jump, the backflip, and the wall kick. Mario isn't just a sprite, he has weight and friction. Just jumping and flipping in the grass outside the castle is more fun than most games. Let's be honest, we all had fun doing that. How great was it just to go around the castle just jumping around like an absolute madman and seeing how far you could go with the long jump and how many combos you could do. Oh, it's fantastic. Now, instead of a straight line to the exit, each level is a playground containing multiple objectives. You don't just beat Bob-omb Battlefield, you revisit it to find different stars. This introduced the concept of mission-based exploration, rewarding players for curiosity and experimentation rather than just reflex speed. Now, compared to the shimmering, warping textures of PlayStation 1, Mario 64 looked incredibly solid. Round things actually look round, and the water with its transparency and ripple effects were a technical marvel for 1996. And Peach's Castle isn't just a menu, it's a level itself. It's a safe, zero-stakes environment where players could learn the 3D mechanics at their own pace. Discovering a secret slide behind a stained glass window or catching the rabbit Mips in the basement turn the level select into an organic part of the adventure. Super Mario 64 is the DNA of modern gaming. It's the bridge between the 2D past and the 3D future. It wasn't just a great game, it was a set of laws, like gravity or physics, that every other 3D game would have to follow for the next 30 years. And it remains the most important proof of concept ever made. Super Smash Bros. Before 1999, fighting games were rigid technical affairs defined by health bars and complex quarter-circle movement inputs. Then Nintendo released a budget title in Japan that asked a single world-shaking question: who would win in a fight, Mario or Link? It threw out the rulebook of the genre, replaced health bars with physics-based knockback, and created a cultural phenomenon that turned every living room into a battlefield. And before everyone starts shouting at me, yes, I know it was brought to my attention the last time I mentioned Smash Brothers that there was another game, I can't remember what it was, that decided to do this as well. So don't start shouting at me, you can remind me in the comments. The setup here is a mysterious master hand brings Nintendo trophies to life in a child's imagination. It features a dream team of 12 iconic characters, 8 starters and 4 hidden, from Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Pokémon and more. And to be honest, let's be honest, did we all think this was going to work? I didn't think it was, but it was absolute godsend. Here you don't drain a life bar, instead you hit your opponent to increase their damage percentage. The higher the number, the further they fly when hit, and you win by launching them off a screen, a ring out. It's simplified fighting to its core, one button for A, standard attacks, and one for B, special moves, with direction on the analog stick changing the move. Super Smash Bros. Is a masterpiece of dynamic chaos. It turned the fighting game into a platforming party where the environment is just as dangerous as the opponent. By replacing static health with a percentage-based weight system, Nintendo created a game that felt alive. Every fight was different because your position on the stage mattered more than your combo. You weren't just memorizing inputs, you were calculating trajectories, air drifts, and recoveries to get back on the ledge. Most fighters were strictly one-on-one, but Smash was built from the ground up for 4 players. This changed the social dynamic of gaming. It wasn't just a duel, it was a riot. The free-for-all nature allowed for temporary alliances, sudden betrayals, and the ability for a weaker player to snatch victory while the other 2 experts were busy fighting each other. The introduction of items, Pokeballs, beam swords, bombs, and hammers added a layer of unpredictability that kept the game accessible. A well-timed Pokeball containing a Snorlax could turn the tide of a match instantly, ensuring that Smash was a game of everything can happen rather than just who has better muscle memory. And the stages weren't just backgrounds, they were hazards. From the random Pokemon in Saffron City, to the tornadoes in Hyrule Castle, and the acid in Brinstar, the game forced you to fight the stage as much as your friends, and it transformed the arena into a third player. This was the first time Nintendo truly leaned to its own history. Every stage, sound effect, and the item was a deep cut from the library. Seeing Pikachu fight Samus or Kirby inhaling Link wasn't just a game, it was the ultimate digital toy box, and it established the crossover as a powerful marketing and emotional tool. Because every character used the same basic control scheme, everyone could just pick up the controller and feel competent within minutes. However, the depth came with the Z cancelling, or the Z cancelling, a technical landing move, and the directional influence meant that skill ceiling was deceptively high. It was the approachable fighter that still demanded respect. Super Smash Bros. Is a stroke of subversive genius. It took the most self-serious genre in gaming and turned it into a joyful, chaotic celebration of Nintendo's legacy. It proved that simpler controls could lead to deeper gameplay and birthed a franchise that would eventually become the biggest crossover event in entertainment history. GoldenEye 007. Before 1997, the first-person shooter was a PC-centric genre defined by the breakneck speed of Doom or Quake. And I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't really a fan of those games. It wasn't until I played GoldenEye 007 for the first time that my dick blew off and I finally loved the genre. Consoles weren't supposed to handle the serious shooters. Then Rare delivered a licensed movie game, historically a recipe for disaster, that completely rewrote the rules. It proved a controller could just be as deadly as a mouse, and it turned every basement in the world into a 4-player technical war zone. You play as Bond, James Bond. And based on the 1990 film, which is one of my favourite films of all time, you navigate a series of global missions to stop the Janus crime syndicate from using the GoldenEye satellite to devastate the world's economy. Unlike the find the keycard shooters of the time, GoldenEye gave you actual spy work. You had to plant bugs, photograph secret documents, and protect computer terminals. Oh my god, that level. It featured a brilliant escalating objective system. On higher difficulties, the game just didn't give enemies more health, it added entirely new mission requirements that forced you to see the levels a new way. And GoldenEye is a masterpiece of cinematic immersion. It took the shooter out of the monster closet and put it into a believable world of shadows and steel. This is one of the first shooters that emphasised stealth and silenced weaponry. You could headshot a guard from a distance, and if no one saw it, the alarm wouldn't go off. It introduced locational damage, meaning a shot to the foot would make a guard limp, while a shot to the hat would knock it off, which was hilarious, and this level of interaction was unheard of on the players. And surprisingly enough, the multiplayer mode was originally a last-minute addition by a small team, but it became the game's soul. With split-screen combat made for 4 players, it introduced the world to the complex, the library, and the facility. It created a new social language, shouting that screen peeking and the unspoken rule of no odd job. Rare utilised the N64's power to create environments that felt cold and industrial. The sound design was peerless, and the way the music shifted from a quiet, tension-filled bass line to a bombastic orchestral theme when you're spotted was pure Hollywood. Even the recoil and the way you reloaded a PP7 felt more tangible than anything seen before. GoldenEye perfected the scope weapon on a controller, used the N64's analog stick for fine aiming while holding the R button, allowed for precision sniping that felt natural. It transformed the FPS from a spray and pray game into a think and aim game. The cheat system was also a huge reason you played this game. Instead of entering codes, you had to earn them. Finishing the facility on 00 agents in under 2 minutes and 5 seconds to unlock invincibility was a badge of honour. I've done it. I'm awesome. It gave the game incredible replayability as players obsessed over time attacks to unlock big head mode, paintball mode, or the coveted golden gun. And the guards didn't just stand there either, they reacted. They would dive or recover, which was hilarious, pull alarms or throw grenades back at you. This made the level feel like encounters rather than just hallways picked with targets. Every room is a tactical puzzle. Do you rush in with your guns or do you pick them off through the windows with the sniper fire? GoldenEye 007 is the most influential console shooter ever made. It paved the way for Halo, Call of Duty and the entire modern landscape of FPS games. It took a license that everyone expected to be mediocre and turned it into a technical and social landmark that defined a generation. It made everyone feel, well for a few hours at a time, like the world's greatest secret agents. Perfect Dark. Yes, I put Perfect Dark in here because we all thought GoldenEye 007 was unbelievable, but then Rare decided to absolutely shatter its limits with Perfect Dark and we're like, oh my god. Now this was a dark, stylish and incredibly dense sci-fi thriller and took everything Bond did and just dialed it up to 11. It was everything and the kitchen sink sequel that felt like the 128-bit game accidentally released a year too early. It's the year 2023. Huh, my god. You're Joanna Dark, a top agent for the Carrington Institute. What starts a corporate rescue mission spiraling into a global conspiracy involving rival aliens, the Greys, and the Reptilians. Perfect Dark introduced secondary fire modes for every single weapon, a deep AI bot system, and a combat simulator that was arguably the most robust multiplayer suite of its era. From the X-ray goggles and the cam-spy drones to the laptop gun that could be deployed as a sentry turret, the gadgetry was light years ahead of Bond's watch. Perfect Dark is a masterpiece of feature creep done right. It's a game so overflowing with ideas and technical ambition that it pushed the N64 to its literal breaking point. Every gun in Perfect Dark is a puzzle. The CMP 150 isn't just an SMG, and its secondary mode allows it to lock onto a target. The Farsight can shoot through walls using an X-ray scope, which was cheating, and this gave the combat a tactical depth that GoldenEye lacked. You weren't just choosing a gun for its damage, but its for utility in specific rooms. And before online gaming was standard, Rare gave us simulants. These AI bots had distinct personalities. Turtle Sims moved slowly but had high shields, while Venge Sims would hunt whoever killed them last. With support for up to 8 bots plus 4 players, the multiplayer was a chaotic, custom-tailored experience that felt like a precursor to modern online lobbies. The guards in Perfect Dark were significantly smarter than Bond's foes. They would beg for mercy, surrender if disarmed, or try and draw a sidearm while wounded. The game tracked hit physics with brutal precision. You could choose a gun out of an enemy's hand or target their heads to see them reel back realistically. Now, Rare used the extra 4 MB of RAM to implement dynamic lighting and high-resolution textures. Muzzle flashes would illuminate dark hallways, and the blurred reload animations gave the game a sense of cinematic grit. It also featured full voice acting for every cutscene, a massive rarity for a cartridge-based game. Long before asymmetrical multiplayer was a buzzword, Perfect Dark featured a mode where one player played the hero, Joanna, the second player would jump from guard to guard, trying to stop Joanna from completing her objectives. It was a brilliant, stressful way to replay the campaign. Much like Peach's Castle, the Institute served as a fully explorable training ground. You could go onto the firing range to earn medals, practice your movements in the hangar, or simply explore Joanna's living quarters. It grounded the sci-fi world, making the Carrington Institute feel like a real organisation you're part of. Perfect Dark is the absolute peak of the N64 shooter. It's a technical monster that traded frame rate for pure ambition. It took the secret agent fantasy and added aliens, corporate espionage, and a level of customization that won't be seen again until the next generation of consoles. It remains the spiritual successor that arguably surpassed its predecessor in every single way. Pokémon Stadium. For years, Pokémon fans had been staring at 2D, black and white sprites on a tiny Game Boy screen, imagining what a Hyper Beam could actually look like. Pokémon Stadium was a technical bridge that turned those imagination-fueled pixels into massive 3D living monsters on a big screen. It wasn't just a game, it was a transition of a global phenomenon into a high-fidelity spectacle. There's no adventure here, it's a pure battle simulator where you take on the 8 Kanto gym leaders, the Elite Four, and eventually the champion in a series of grueling tournaments, and I did it because I was a god at Pokémon, still am. The transfer pack was the game's killer app. It came bundled in with a device that plugged into the back of your N64 controller, allowing you to upload your own Pokémon from red, blue or yellow into a 3D arena. And it also featured all 151 original Pokémon, each with fully animated moves, victory dances and unique fainting animations. Pokémon Stadium is a master of visual validation. It gave the pocket monsters a sense of weight and power the handheld simply couldn't provide. In 2000, seeing a 3D Charizard let out a flamethrower that filled the entire TV screen was a religious experience for kids. The game used the N64's power to create cinematic camera angles that followed the action, making every turn-based move feel like an episode of the anime. Unlike the Game Boy games, which were relatively easy, Pokémon Stadium was hard. Yes, it got very hard. The computer players actually used competitive strategies to exploit your weaknesses. It forced a generation of kids to learn about stab, which was same type attack bonuses, status effects and team composition. It was the pro league of the Pokemon world. Recognizing that constant battles could be intense, Nintendo included a collection of 9 legendary minigames, from Sushi Go Round with Lickitung, don't ask why I can do that, but I can, to Magikarp Splash. These were high quality 4-player party games that rivaled Mario Party in their ability to destroy friendships and ruin analog sticks. One of the best hidden features was the ability to play your Game Boy Pokemon games on your TV through the N64. Even better, as you cleared cups, you unlocked Duo and Dodrio modes, which allowed you to play the original games at 2 times or 3 times speed. This became the definitive way to grind your levels for the team. And to make the battles feel like a televised event, the game featured a high-energy announcer who commented on every move. Lines like, "Taken down by Thunderbolt," or "It's a one-hit wonder," added a layer of sports broadcast hype that made the turn-based combat feel more frantic and exciting. The game served as the ultimate management tool. The lab allowed you to organise your PC boxes, trade Pokemon between cartridges with our link cable, and view a collection of 3D gallery. It made your Game Boy save file feel like a precious permanent record of your journey. Pokémon Stadium is the ultimate reward for the Pokemania generation. It took a portable hobby and turned it into a living room event. By connecting the handheld and console worlds, it created a feedback loop that made the Pokemon universe feel unified and real. It remains a nostalgic pillar for anyone who spent their weekends trying to take down Mewtwo in glorious 64-bit 3D. Conker's Bad Fur Day. Now, why am I put Conker's Bad Fur Day? It didn't push the console to its limit graphically. No, it did what I thought it was never going to do. It was an adult game, with a childlike mascot. I couldn't believe what I was actually watching. Like in the first few minutes he comes out the pub vomiting. It was ridiculous. Released at the very end of the N64's life, Conker was a shocking departure for Rare and Nintendo. It took the cute collectathon mascot formula and doused it in gasoline, cheap beer and a heavy dose of Quentin Tarantino. It's a technical miracle that pushed the N64 hard into the game because of, well, the content, delivering a cinematic experience filled with adult humour that completely felt illegal to play a Nintendo console. I honestly thought Nintendo were going to come through the door at some point. Thank God my mother had no idea what was going on. Conker is a hungover squirrel that's just trying to get home to his girlfriend Berry. That's the premise. It's awesome. Meanwhile, the Panther King needs a red squirrel to replace a missing leg for his side table. That is the concept, which is hilarious. What follows is a real journey that moves through movie parodies and vulgar obscurity. It's a context-sensitive platformer. Instead of collecting 100 of everything, you stand on a specific pad, press B, and Conker pulls out whatever the situation requires. It could be a slingshot, a flamethrower, or a hangover cure. I wish I had that. It's famously rated M, featuring graphic violence, profanity, and a literal opera-singing mountain of feces, and my dad's done this. We're not repeating it here, but go back to previous videos or listen to the podcast to hear my dad be the great mighty Pooh. Conker's Bad Fur Day is a masterpiece of cinematic subversion. He used the N64's aging hardware to do things that won't become standard until the next generation. Conker features arguably the best facial animations on the 64-bit era. Unlike Mario or Banjo, whose mouths just flapped open and shut, Conker's face moved with actual precision. He had lips syncing for his dialogue, expressive eyebrows, and eyes that darted around. This made the comedy land perfectly, as the characters could actually act out jokes. And while most N64 games used text boxes and gibberish sounds, Conker featured a fully voiced script. Rare managed to compress hours of high-quality voice acting into a cartridge, making you feel you were playing for a feature-length animated movie. The comedic timing and voice performances remain some of the best in gaming history. As you can probably tell by my accent, yeah, it was mostly English, and there was even once from Liverpool, which was fucking great, lad, because you could speak like this and just give absolute shit. The game is essentially a series of high-budget movie tributes. You'll play through a Save It Private Ryan beach landing, which I was just, what the hell am I watching here? To a Matrix lobby shootout, which is awesome, and an alien boss fight. These weren't just references, the gameplay mechanics changed entirely to match the movie being spoofed. Rare used a multi-texturing technique to give the world a plush, detailed look that hid the N64's atrocious blur. The lighting was equally impressive, with shadows and glows that made the environments like the spooky vampire castle or the Ooga Booga cave feel moody and atmospheric. The multiplayer mode is also a Dark Horse legend. It featured classes like snipers, grunts, and demolitionists, and mission-based modes that were surprisingly deep. Whether you were playing Heist to steal bags of money, or Raptor where one team plays as dinosaurs trying to eat each other, it was a brutal, chaotic alternative to the clean fun of Smash Bros. You can't talk about Conker without mentioning the boss fight against a giant pile of shit that sings a multiverse opera while you throw rolls of toilet paper into its mouth. It's just absolutely hilarious. Like, I could give my own rendition of it, like I can do a bit of opera. I'm basic. I'm a basic bitch. Like, again, if you want to listen to my dad do it, because it's hilarious him doing it, I was surprised I actually got him to do it. Like, he hates video games, but when I was doing the podcast, I said, Dad, do you mind just singing this bit of song for the podcast? He's like, yeah, of course, it'll help you out. I need you to basically sing lines about, like, chocolate starfish, call someone a twat, and I'm going to throw my shit at you. He looked at me and went, I want to disown you, but when I showed him the video, he actually had a bit of a chuckle and said, yes, I'll do it. But just wait until we do Final Fantasy VI. Yes, my sister will be doing that, she's going to be doing it, and she's a professional opera singer. She's been on Britain's Got Talent. She is insane. And going back to the point, Conker's Bad Fur Day is the N64's punk rock finale. It's technically flawless, visually stunning middle finger to the kiddie image of the console. It proved the platformer could just be more than collecting stars. It could be a vehicle for storytelling, satire, and pure chaos. It remains a cult classic that's never really truly been matched. And finally, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. We knew this was going to be on here. Come on. Before Ocarina of Time, developers were still stumbling in the dark trying to figure out how an adventure should feel in 3 dimensions. When Link stepped onto Hyrule Field for the first time, the industry didn't just see a game, they saw a blueprint. It was the big bang for the action-adventure genre, introducing mechanics that were so fundamental today that we almost forget they had to be invented by someone. A young boy from the forest, Link is tasked with stopping the Gerudo King Ganondorf from obtaining the Triforce. The journey spans 7 years, using the Master Sword to travel between Link's childhood and a dark adult future. It features a massive, for the first time, open world, sprawling dungeons with complex puzzles, and a musical mechanic that used the controller as a literal instrument. It is frequently cited in the greatest game of all time list, and has held the highest Metacritic score in history for decades. Ocarina of Time is a masterpiece of spatial logic. It taught players how to exist, fight, and solve problems in 3D environments without getting frustrated. The Z-targeting is the single most important contribution Ocarina of Time made to the gaming. In 3D it was incredibly hard to keep track of enemies while moving, and so Nintendo developed a lock-on system which tethered the camera and Link's focus to an opponent. It turned clunky 3D swinging into a technical dance of circling, backflipping, and guarding, and every 3D combat system since, from Dark Souls to God of War, is built on this foundation. To keep the controls simple, Nintendo made the A button change its function depending on the situation. If you were near a block, it was a grab, near a door, it was open, and in the middle of a sprint, it was roll, and at some points, kill Navi. This prevented the controller from being uncluttered and allowed the gameplay to feel intuitive and smooth. Ocarina of Time featured a full day-night cycle. Shops would close at night, wolves would come out into the fields, and the music would seamlessly shift. For a player in 1998, seeing the sunset over Hyrule Field while the skeletons rose from the ground was a level of immersion that felt hauntingly real. While the Ocarina wasn't just a menu item, you actually played the notes using the C button and A button. Learning songs to change the time of day, warp across the map, or summon your horse created a deep tactical connection to the world. You weren't just pressing a button, you were performing magic. Dungeons like the Forest Temple and the infamous Water Temple use a 3D space in 2D games never could. They required you to look up, down, and around corners using verticality to hide keys and puzzles. The sense of scale, standing in the central chamber of the Fire Temple and looking up at the towering puzzles, was a technical artistic triumph. And the time travel mechanic wasn't just a gimmick, it was emotional storytelling. Returning into the bustling market as an adult only to find it ruined and filled with re-deads, zombies, was an actual gut punch. It made the quest to save Hyrule feel personal because you saw exactly what was lost. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time was one of the most groundbreaking 3D games ever made. It provided a template of how we explore, the way we fight, and the soul for how we experience digital stories. It was a flawless execution of ambition that proved video games could be epic poems. And that's it, some of the most jaw-dropping games for the N64. As always, I'd love to hear your stories, and also your experience when you played these games for the first time. And if there's ones I've not mentioned, as I said, put them in the comments below. As always, at the beginning, if you do like this, please give it a like and a hype, because that is what helps this channel grow. Until then, I'll see you all in a few days. My name's been Danny. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.